TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israeli Defense Minister Yisrael Katz warns Hamas that renewed hostilities will entail an intensity it had yet experienced. IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi instructs the IDF to ratchet up operational pressure on terror cells throughout Judea and Samaria. Lebanon forms a new government which includes Hezbollah's closest ally, Amal. Amid prospects of renewed hostilities between the IDF and the Islamist Hamas terror organization in the Gaza Strip, Israel is also ratcheting up its counter-terror operations in the northern Samaria region. With seeming success in the battlefield, with Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad among others sustaining daily blows, IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, during a visit to an exercise of operational forces in northern Samaria, ordered to intensify the heavy pressure on the terror elements throughout Judea and Samaria.
If I look at the challenge in Judea and Samaria from this point forward, we will continue to exert a very, very strong offensive effort because we know that entering their shams, entering the Jenin camp, carrying out apprehensions in the heart of Tulkarm, Hebron, or Al-Shuyuk, and extracting terrorists between their planning and execution stages, or as early as possible in the planning stage. It is the most effective approach. This must continue, and you are doing it in a truly high-quality manner.
Meanwhile, vis-a-vis the Gaza Strip, Israeli Defense Minister Yisrael Katz, during a comprehensive security consultation at the IDF's Operations Directorate, doubled down on Jerusalem's threat to resume fighting unless Hamas releases Israel's hostages on Saturday noon.
אם החמאס לא ישחרר את החטופים הישראלים עד ליום השבת,
If Hamas does not release the Israeli hostages by Saturday, the gates of hell will open upon them, just as the President of the United States promised. I came here today to ensure that the IDF is properly preparing to renew the war in Gaza. The entire ceasefire agreement with the Hamas murderers was intended to bring about the swift release of the Israeli hostages, who are being held in grave conditions in Gaza, for which Israel has agreed to pay a heavy price. If Hamas stops the hostage release, then there is no ceasefire agreement and there is war.
Jerusalem's top defense official continued by stressing that the renewed war versus Hamas would include a new level of intensity, which the Palestinian terror group has not yet experienced.
The new Gaza war will be of another intensity from the one before the ceasefire and will not end without the defeat of Hamas and the release of all the hostages. And it will also allow the realization of Trump's vision for Gaza.
It is important to know that the Islamist Hamas had succumbed to pressure, stressing in a statement that it confirms the continuation in implementing the agreement in accordance with what was signed, including the exchange of prisoners according to the specified timetable, as it put it. Meanwhile, despite circulating reports regarding Israeli intentions to adhere to the outline of the deal, no official statement was made, beyond the remarks by Defense Minister Katz, who was unequivocal in support of President Trump's voiced terms, a fact that has raised concerns among Israeli relatives of hostages, sparking a number of demonstrations in central Israel.
We are terrified. We are absolutely terrified. There is an agreement that President Trump endorsed, and he endorsed it, and now everybody is leaving it or sabotaging it or torpedoing it. I don't know the right word. It's absolutely terrifying, and we want everybody to calm down and complete this agreement as it was signed.
Turning to the southern Negev region, near the town of Arad, where Israeli President Yitzhak Herzog voiced a prayer for the speedy return of all hostages.
אני מבקש להביע משאלה
I would like to express a wish, a prayer, and a cry for our kidnapped brothers. As I've noted, Kobi Hafan, the father of Sejev, with whom I held an intimate conversation earlier this week. The kidnapped men and women who returned to us and began their rehabilitation process have illustrated to us the enormous importance of ransoming captives. The deepest foundation of Israeliness and Judaism is the understanding that whoever sustains one soul, even one soul in Israel, is as if an entire world has been saved. These are extremely moving, sensitive, and painful moments, in which I call yet again to act in every way, with every tool, to return the kidnapped, to advance the steps and tools required to implement the various stages of the deal. As someone who is in daily contact with many families of the hostages, I am literally crying out, bring everyone home, down to the last one.
President Herzog, who attended a tree planting ceremony at a site where a new community is expected to be built, seized the opportunity to call upon the Jerusalem government to take note of a drought forecast, which Israel will have to contend with in the year ahead.
Despite the rains that have now begun to pour upon us, it is impossible on this day, the new year of the trees, not to be very concerned about the severe drought and the future of agriculture this year. This morning, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Avi Dichter, who is present here, spoke about this. And I call on everyone, all the agencies, all the government ministries to prepare for the possibility of drought and to deal with it.
Turning northward, where the IDF is constructing 5 temporary outposts in southern Lebanon. The military outposts are to be manned by hundreds of troops, even after Israel concludes its expected withdrawal next Tuesday. It is important to explain that Israel's defense establishment has recently detected efforts by the Iranian proxy Hezbollah to repair its intelligence gathering apparatus in southern Lebanon and to resume manning command posts and other positions south of the Litani River, contrary to the deal that led to the ceasefire. And while Israel asked the United States to postpone the date of the IDF's withdrawal from southern Lebanon, Jerusalem's request was rejected, with the Trump administration permitting a temporary presence of the referred to 5 outposts that are designed to guarantee that the Lebanese armed forces act to prevent Hezbollah from renewing its operations south of the Litani River. Meanwhile, during a visit to Beirut over the weekend, President Trump's deputy envoy to the Middle East, Morgan Ortagus, committed to the Lebanese leadership in Beirut that the IDF's withdrawal from Lebanon on February 18th constitutes a firm date which the Trump administration is very committed to.
My very first trip outside of the United States is to Lebanon. It's an honor to be here, and February 18th will be the date for redeployment whenever the IDF troops will finish their redeployment, and of course the LAF troops will come in behind them. So we are very committed to that firm date.
Ortegas further stressed Washington's expectation, following Israel's undeniable victory over Hezbollah, that the Iranian terror proxy will not become a part of Lebanon's new government in any form.
I've never seen so much excitement in the United States and from the Lebanese diaspora around the world about the future of this country. And I think it is largely in part, of course, because Hezbollah was defeated by Israel, and we are grateful to our ally Israel for defeating Hezbollah. It is thanks to President Aoun and the Prime Minister-designate Nawaf Salam and everyone in this government who is committed to an end of corruption, who's committed to reforms, and who are committed to making sure that Hezbollah is not a part of this government in any form, and that Hezbollah remains disarmed and militarily defeated.
Despite clearly stating Washington's red line vis-à-vis any form of involvement of Hezbollah in the new government, Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam announced the very next day the formation of his new government, which includes 4 cabinet portfolios of Hezbollah's closest ally Amal, to include the finance ministry.
أما وقد أعلنا الحكومة
Now that we have announced the government, which I hope will be a government of reform and salvation, I would like to emphasize the following points, which I place at the top of my priorities. First, reform is the only path to real salvation, and this requires the government to ensure security and stability in Lebanon by completing the implementation of Resolution 1701 and the ceasefire agreement and following up on Israel's withdrawal to the last inch of Lebanese territory. This is in conjunction with reconstruction, which I previously said is not a promise but a commitment.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. It is really important for us to highlight that TV7 Israel is a non-profit ministry with all of our productions exclusively reliant on the generosity of our viewers. Therefore, if you're blessed by the content of our programs, I would like to encourage you to support TV7 Israel with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, I'd like to ask you, as ever, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we will see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.